Hey everyone, this is Not So Slim Jim here. Bring another little video for you. This is going to be for Ford Mustangs, for V6 GTs, Mach 1s, or Cobras from 99 to 2004. It might work for the older Mustangs prior to the or after the box series ones. It may work for a couple of newer ones. I haven't done it, so I can't guarantee. So we're going to go through some of the basic stuff. Now, this is going to be a down and dirty video. It's not going to be any super high graphics or anything crazy. It's going to be real basic. I'm going to show you everything you need to know. Now, we're going to go through two different types of conversions. We're going to go through your standard LED conversion, which you're going to need some of these little T5 conversion LEDs. When you get these, you can get them on eBay. I got 40 of them for like $8. And make sure you get the ones that have the little wedge style conversions, because when you take the old bulbs out, you're going to have something to put them in, because the new ones won't fit into the old ones. And if you find ones that do, they might be damaged. It's just easier to spend $10 and get them. The bad part about that is you can't adjust the high-low. They're just on, which I didn't go with the super brights. I went with the kind of the standard bright ones, so they won't be blinding me. I'm going to be using transparent film as a disperser to equal out the light between them. I'll have a clip later to show the difference between the two. Or we're going to go through the more simple one if you want to have adjustability, where it's not as bright and it's not quite as rich of a color, but how to do a film conversion. That way you can still use the high-low and you can adjust your bulbs no problem, but it'll change the color of it. A few of the things you're going to need, one is a quality little toolkit like we got here. You're going to need, it looks like it is a T20, T15 are the two different size bits you're going to want to have. I'll show you those here in a minute. You're going to want to have yourself some blue masking tape, a marker or pen, preferably a pen that works well. You don't want something that's going to leave a mark if you have to dig it in. Some sandpaper. I used 200 grit and 800 grit. I would recommend not using solvent. We'll get into that part a little bit later. If you have the digital gauge that says your miles on it, your tripometer, if you want that to be a brighter color, you're going to need some Plastic X along with some buffing pads or paper towel or whatever you really want to use. Any of those will work. But let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to show you how to do the removal. Alright, now this is a 2002 V6. I already have mine taken apart, so I'm doing a few different things to it. But when you go to, get this out of the way, remove your bezel, there's going to be two of the T20s. There's going to be one, I'm going to back up so y'all can see better. There'll be one here and one over here. Okay, you take those out, and then there's two clips, and the plastic bezel will just pop out. Now you'll have your on-off knob, or your headlight knob here, which is supposed to have a little clip in it. Mine just came right off. I think the little clip is a push style. They're not too hard to get off. Usually if you give a nice little force, she'll come off regardless. So you're going to take off those two. Okay, after that, you're going to have four more of the T20 bits. You're going to have at least a 4-inch extension for these bottom ones. There's going to be one in the bottom here, and then one on the top, and then the same on the other side. One in the bottom down here, and then one in the top, and that'll loosen your gauges. Now I'm going to go ahead, I only have one free hand, so I'm going to go ahead and take those off, and then from that point we'll come back. Alright, we went and got those 4 bolts out. Now, for this one, you don't have to connect your battery. Other people say you might have to. I leave mine on. There's no point disconnecting it. When you take this out, you're actually going to want to pull it forward a little bit and then rotate it down. Now, I found out the easiest way to get it out is get the clip here in the back, pull that one first, because the one on the right-hand side tends to be a little snug compared to the one on the left-hand side, and then come back. So I'm going to do that. I'll come right back. We have our gauge panel off. Now I'm going to go over a very, 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 very important part. Now, to do this properly, all these little Lexan needles are going to be pulled off, which we'll go over that here in a minute. But if you do not have your gauges marked properly, when we go into the third phase, which is reassembly, it's going to be very, very difficult to get everything back accurately. So what you want to do, you're going to take yourself your T15, and there's going to be these little Torx bits. There's going to be, let's see, 4 on the top, as you can tell by the zinc-plated ones. and there's going to be 4 on the bottom. You're going to want to undo those. Now, mine is aftermarket. The gauges are normal, but I broke my screen a while ago trying to clean it when I tried taking it off because I had some dew coming down here. So you're going to want to use a heat gun and warm up around the edges enough to loosen up that factory sealant. If not, take a razor blade and slowly run it across very easily all the way around, because this plastic will break very easily. Now, if you do break it, luckily you can go to latemodelrestoration.com or eBay and you can pick up a new bezel with the black plastic backing for about $40. So it's really not that bad. Now, I'm not going to personally do it because I don't need to. What we're going to do is you're going to take this off, and when you open it up, you're going to see the gauge faces, which you'll see here in a minute. Now, the 2 most important ones are going to be your fuel, and it's going to be your voltage gauge. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to take this cover off, you're going to leave it off, you're going to plug both the connectors. Now, you got to plug them both in or it won't work with your security system. And you're going to take some blue painter's tape, and you're going to put it right over the top of the battery gauge and right over the top of the fuel gauge. You're going to turn your ignition to the on. Don't start it. Just put it to the on position. And when your needles pop up, you're going to take that magic marker or pen we talked about, and you're going to mark exactly where it's at. Because when we take these needles off, we're going to have to put them back on, which is going to be, like I said, it's going to be part 3 of reassembly, where you actually have to put this together without the lens face on it, turn it on, and you're going to have to adjust all these little Lexan needles. So we'll get to that portion here in a little bit. But so let's just say you went ahead, took this off, plugged it back in. You don't gotta screw it back in. You can leave it kind of laying flat here. You'll be careful. You can tilt it, put it back into place. Then from that point, put your marks on, and let's go ahead and move inside. All right, now we're going to get into the changes you're going to do if you're doing an LED swap. Okay, there are a few bulbs you need to swap out, which are going to be, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now those are going to be the 5 bulbs that are going to illuminate all your gauges. Now, they're not going to illuminate your turn signal or your high beam or any of your cluster controls, which I'm leaving stock, but they are going to do the rest. I went with the T5 blues. This is upside down, easier to see. And you can tell I have the black replacement ones. Now, I wanted blue high beams and marker lights, so I went ahead and did those 3 as well. So if you want to do all of them, you're going to need 8. Plus the little conversion ones that literally take a pair of needle nose pliers, you put in there, you rotate a little bit, they pop out. Now, if you put the LEDs in and they don't work, most LEDs are one direction, which means all you got to do is pop it back out, take that LED, flip it 180 degrees, stick it back in, it should work. We'll go over that in phase 3. Now we're going to go back over to the front, because that's only if you're swapping out LEDs. I'm going to go ahead and take this cover off. I'll be back in a second. Alright, back with the lens cover. Now, I said mine's aftermarket because I already broke mine. So from experience, when you're taking all this black piece off, it's going to have a little bit of factory sealant. So you're going to use a heat gun and just warm it up. Not a lot. Put it on low. Don't run that sucker in high. Take your time. Warm it up and then start pulling one corner up at a time. If not, you can take a razor blade. Luckily, mine's aftermarket, so it just peels right off. As you can tell, it has the black gauges. Now, if you wanted to, you can even heat up this clear plastic part, or use a razor blade or a correlation of the 2, and you can pull the plastic off if you wanted to, and you can paint that black different colors. I'm not personally going to do that. I like the color it is, the ABS plastic black. But if you want to use silver or red or green or purple or a rainbow colored, or you want to put whatever you want on it, you want to write stuff, you can. We're not going to go that far. Okay, now we're going to look at the gauges. Like I said, these Lexans here, they are resistance style, which means they got little resistance motors in the back. So if you pull it off from here right now, that doesn't mean it's going to be where it's set. We're going to do that in part 3. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to pull these guys off. Now, I don't have the proper tool for it, so I'm going ghetto. Taking a butter knife, I'm going to put some blue painter's tape, which you should have for when you mark your gas gauge and your voltage gauge. And I'm going to put a little layer on it because this stuff right here, it's abrasion resistant, but it will scratch. So I'm going to go ahead and pause for a second, get my knife ready, and we'll go through one of those. Alright, got my little ghetto knife. Now, like I said, you want to make it so it doesn't scratch. Now what you're going to do is you're going to get your knife under here, and it's literally just kind of pressed on. So you're just going to very lightly, well, See if I can do this with one hand. I'll do it on an easier one. Get underneath here and just kind of slowly wedge it up. See how it pops right off? You're going to take that little guy, and you see all it is a little needle and a little hole. All of them are the same. Just be very, very careful, because they will break and they will bend these little needles. You burn that little needle, it's never going to work right again, so you got to be very careful. Put light pressure on the center of it. Now, if you have one of the little tools that slides underneath both sides, or you want to take yourself a piece of real thin metal and make yourself one, that's fine. Butter knife and tape. Let me go ahead and get these off. We'll come back. All right. We now have all our Lexan needles off. Now, when you go to remove this, I've already had mine off, but there's going to be little dabs of glue back and forth on this. So you're going to want to take yourself a long knife, something that's got a blade, an edge to it, but not too sharp. If it's too sharp, it might cut through this plastic. It's thick, but it's still vulnerable. And you're going to work. You're going to lift up a little bit, figure out where it's stuck at, and then start lifting it from there. Okay? Now, I said mine's already been off. You can probably see all the little points where it's been stuck. Now, see what I'm talking about? These are the resistant motors. These are what actually cause the gauges to go back and forth. But if they're not set properly, which once again, stage 3, we'll go over that, everything is going to be messed up. Now, we're going to get started on how to fix the actual gauge cover itself. So let me go ahead and move this guy out the way for now. Now, what it is, mine's already been done, but on the back side, as you can tell, everything's backwards, there's going to be a layer of green, real thin, transparent green paint that goes over everything with a layer of white over top of it. And that white is a diffuser, so that way the light kind of moves around so it's not all one piece. So what you're going to do is you're going to take some tape, and right here where your gauges or your tripometer goes through, you're going to tape that up. Now, that's only if you want it to be brighter, because it has a yellow tint to it, which is going to make your blue lights seem green. If you want them to be that whitish blue color, then you're actually going to have to sand this down and then use some Plastic X, which I got right there, and you're going to have to buff it out a little bit. I left mine, as you can tell, it's pretty clear. But what you're going to do is when you start sanding all of these, you're going to start sanding. Now, you don't want to sand too much. You're going to sand little circles, and then what you're going to do is you're going to put it up, so you can get it to light, where it's going to look green. But once you get it good enough, you're going to see that the numbers are going to turn white versus being green. Now, if you don't want your turn signals or your bright indicator to be whatever color you're changing, then from that point, tape those off as well, because they're real close to those numbers. You can tell it's about a fingernail's length away. Unless you want to do like I did, want them to be blue too, in that case, do them all. Now, you're going to have these little plastic stop gauges. If those are going to get in your way, what you can do is take yourself a pair of small needle nose pliers and pinch them, and they'll just pop right out. When you're done, you just pop them right back in. Just be careful, though, because they are pretty fragile. Now, here's where we're going to get to the point where if you want to do a dispersionary or if you want to do a colored lens, because if you want to have the ability to adjust your brightness up and down on it still, you're going to leave the factory bulbs in there, which are located through these little plastic pieces right here that disperse the light, because they're located in the back. And you're just going to leave those bulbs. You still got to scratch all the paint off this, because that's what makes it green. And you're going to grab yourself a piece of transparent paper, which I have right here. Now, mine are clear transparent. You can't really tell because it's on a piece of backing. See if I can get the edge up a little bit. As you can tell, mine are clear. I went with a matte finish. I'm going to put that down over this clear part, so that way the light disperses better, so it looks more of an even blue versus being just, really bright in a couple spots and dim in other spots. Now, if you want to do different colors, once you make the gauge face white, all you do is you buy this, which you can get off eBay. I got 3 sheets for like $8 shipped from Canada. And you get red, purple, blue, green, whatever color you want, and you're actually going to lay it down over top of this, and you're going to cut out over these areas and cut off the excess. So I'm going to go ahead and lay mine down and then cut it. We'll come back here in a second. All right, went ahead and got my matte finish on. As you can tell, it looks a lot more shady than it did before. Now, you don't necessarily have to do it over these two. I'm actually going to cut these out so that way, because it'll make it a little bit brighter, because these three, because they have their own individual LED in each one of these holes. It's pretty bright as they are. But when you're cutting it, when you look at, you want to actually cut a larger square around these holes, because that's where the light's going to come in for the Lexans, which is going to hit that red piece right there and then come out, and that's where we're going to see them. So if you make it too close, these won't be as bright. Unless you want them dimmer, in that case, feel free. I use 3 sheets altogether, your standard size sheet, which are whatever the heck those suckers are. Like I said, I got 3 sheets. What I did is I went ahead and I cut them in half. I used half for this side, half for that side. You can see I got that seam up the middle, but I lined them up really well, so it shouldn't make a difference. I'm going to also cut out around here so that way you can see those just a little bit brighter. I haven't done that quite yet. Cut out these bottom ones. They're still running standard LEDs that might, or I'm sorry, standard conventional bulbs that might be too warm for this plastic sheeting. Now, if you're doing red, blue, or whatever color, it would just look like this, just like this same transparent stuff, but in a different tint. That's also your reason you want to cut them out. Otherwise, your needles are going to be weird colors. And it would go just like this. This is a matte white. You know, so if you're not sure where to get this at, leave a comment. I'll go ahead and I'll tell you where to do that. For now, I'm going to cut out these 2 pieces here and here. I'll be back. Okay, got these 2 pieces cut out. Now, let me tell you right here, there's that little reset button for your tripometer. You got to make sure, if you're going to leave this a different color, you got to at least cut that little guy out, and you want to make it just a big enough hole where you can get in there. Now mine, I'm leaving these the color they are. It comes across as kind of a white with a blue tinge. I like it. They're a little bit brighter. If you do a lot of night trips or something, it may annoy you if you're ultra photosensitive or something, but for me, I took them off. Now, you got these guys done, which are going to be in white. Like I said, those little plastic pieces you pop right back on, and this has going to go back into place. You got these little locator tabs, so everything will go on. Now, if you look at it, for the tachometer and speedometer, they don't have little stops. But if you look at all the other ones, they have these little notches, so they can only go so far. So what we're going to do is we're going to, very lightly, not going to put these all the way on, just going to barely set them in there. Just enough where they don't fall off. That's all we're going to do, because we're going to go into stage 3, which is reassembly. And that's going to require us to zero these out. So, I'm just going to kind of barely press them on. Now, we're going to go further into this when you put them on later, but when you put them on later, you're not going to press them fully on, especially with having the extra layer of tape, because it'll actually sit flush against the backing and the needle won't move. So, we're just going to do that. Got this together. We're going to go ahead and grab that, and we're going to have our 8 little T15 torque screws. We're going to take those back out to the vehicle, and we're going to get them cleaned up. Once again, you got any questions, is there anything I may have missed in this process, leave in a comment, and I'll answer as quick as I can. Let's go back to the Mustang. Alright, here we are back in the Mustang. I got my gauge set. Now, as you noticed, I did not put the lens back on. You're not going to want that on yet. If you put it back on, you're going to take it right back off. So go ahead, take that off. Careful. Now, like I said, it is fragile and it is very scratchable. So what we're going to need to do now is we're going to take these Lexans back off. We're going to put this guy into place. We're going to connect the wires, leave it loose. We're going to adjust the needles. That's why you needed that tape to mark it. Now, luckily my fuel gauge, I just replaced the fuel pump and something went wrong with the gauge. I got to take it back down, burn some fuel out of it. The siphoning out of these things is just a pain. And figure out what's going on with my fuel sending unit. So hopefully I'll only drop $400 for new ones. So let's go ahead and get this into place. I'll be right back. Okay, we have our gauges roughly in place. And I want to turn it on. I'm going to show you why. Now see how that my tachometer and everything's crazy? Well, if you turn it to the on position, they're not exactly going to zero out. So what you're going to have to do, turn it on position. Once again, don't start it. Now you're going to have to do this when you're on a cold engine. Otherwise your heat gauge won't be proper. So I'm going to start with 1. Sorry, the lighting in here kind of sucks. Shut up, car. No one's talking to you. We're going to grab this little gauge. And we're going to pop it off. Now, like you were saying earlier, there's that little stop. So what you're going to do is you're going to try to get it pretty much right where it hits that stop. You got to have to pull it out and adjust a little bit. Okay, it's right about there. Now, if you want to, you can take a picture of your gauges prior to you starting this project. That way you can see where they sit. You can use that for reference. I always love doing that when I'm working on motors, when I'm doing all kinds of stuff, because that allows me to know where stuff goes back to. Now, you're not just going to press it all the way on. What you're going to do is you're going to press it down a little bit. Make sure it's got clearance, and then feel with the back of your finger, because they go in real easy. But like I said, you don't want them all the way. You want to make sure if you take it, you move your finger, it slides back. Okay, now my battery gauge, I didn't mark it because I was a dum-dum before, but I know my battery's good. So I'm going to put that bad boy, if you can see, sorry it kind of sucks, right about in the middle, because I got a brand new battery on here and I haven't ran the heck out of it, so I know that's going to sit just a little bit shy of the middle because it's not running. So I'm going to put it just a hair over. There we go. Press it down real lightly. Make sure, now you can pull it back a little bit, make sure it's on there taut, but make sure it moves okay. Now we're going to move over to our tachometer, and that one's easy, it's got to stop. So what you're going to do, lift it up, and you're going to kind of firmly put it on that little stop point, and make sure you're going to have a little bit of play, that's fine. Once again, press down, but not too much. And then make sure, because once again though, you want a little gap, so you also have a little aura of light around it to help you see everything. Okay. Once again, it's moving freely. Okay, let's move over to our speedometer, so Lord knows I'm not doing 40 right now. Get in that little hole. That's what she said. Put it down. Make sure it moves freely. Push it in a little bit. Make sure it's, get a little back and forth test. Make sure it's in there. You want to be driving down the road and a freaking thing to fall off on you. Okay, hot temp. Same thing. Well, that one is not in the gauge yet. There we go. So I can see how it limits how far it goes. I need to move a little bit more over. Okay. Press it down just a hair. Make sure it doesn't come off. Fuel gauge. Once again, you would have a piece of blue tape there marking. I do not, because I need to fix my gauge. I just got done doing a whole bunch of new work, new rims, new tires, new... Anyways, that's a whole different video. Get it in there. 0 is out. That's about where empty is going to be. Press it in a little bit. Okay, now you can see all the gauges are where they're supposed to be sitting. Sorry if I zoom back like that, you can't see. I could probably move my voltage gauge a little bit further forward. A little bit, test and error. Now, come on, you little bugger. There we go. That's right about where I want her now. Alright, I'm going to take this apart. We're going to get back to the lens cover back on and check. Okay, now that we got everything where we want it, we're going to go ahead and put the lens cover back on. Now, in the process of doing this the first time, I got these faces a little bit dirty with a little bit of marring. You know, a little bit of plastic polish. Put it on there, just wipe it real smooth. We'll clean it up. I didn't do that part earlier. I'm sorry, you'll live. They'll bring that nice gray color back. If you want to change the color of these faces, they do actually make aftermarket face plates. Don't get the electronic crap where you got to hook wires to it and it's got a separate voltage adapter. And I've worked with those in the past. They are an absolute freaking nightmare. They never work properly. They go in and out. You're better off just getting a new cover, which is nice because then you don't have to sand it and everything if you get them when they're already clear. Then we're going to take our face here, our lens cover, and make sure not to hit one of the needles. And we're just going to put that back into place. We're going to have those 8 T15 Torx screws. We're going to put those back in. Obviously, you don't need to be a rocket science for this part. I'm sure you can figure it out. When you tighten them down, don't torque the living ever out of them. Just get them nice and snug. I'm going to do that, and we'll continue. Now, I went ahead and I closed my garage door. I'm waiting for my light on the garage door opener to turn off so you can see what it looks like. I already got my nice bright LED dome lamp in there. Another couple bucks for one of the, I think it was a 10 XM LED replacement. You just pop it off, pop the new one in. They're not very hard. Also went ahead and got the lamp lights, as you can tell, are also in a bluish white color. Went with the ultra white. I'm going to show you now, for an LED conversion, if you have the little adjuster knob, it will not do anything for you. They turn on and that is it. If you want to be able to have the adjustability of brightness, you're going to want to go with the film conversion. If you do film, you might have to do more than 2 layers. You might have to do up to 4. So make sure to buy. It takes 1 sheet if you cut it in half to do left and right sections. So you're going to want to go with at least 2 sheets for that. Let me go ahead and I'm going to have a video right after this showing before I did the film. But it still has the hot spots, as you can tell right here by the 6. Oh, so let me get my dome light trim off. Give me a second. It looks a lot worse than it does on video. It just looks slightly brighter on the 6. It has the aurora effect going on, so it has a little bit, but it looks really quite good. I went ahead and did my HVAC stuff too. One of my LEDs went bad already. These ones are easy. You just pull it out and replace the LEDs. You're done. But you got to have the 2 8mm or 5/16 bolts on either side. I think they're one of those sides. Let's pull that sucker out. You got to be careful because it's got the line driven. But that is pretty much what you're going to be looking at. Like I said, those 2 hot spots look worse than they actually are. I probably could have went with a 3rd layer of the vinyl matte sheeting to go over it to disperse a little bit more. But once you actually see it, I'll take a couple stills and I'll try to add them at the end so you see what it looked like without that aurora from the video. If you got any questions, comments, concerns, you're not sure what you're doing, go ahead and hit me up. This is Not So Slim Jim, and I'm here for your Mustang projects. Now, this is a view of an LED conversion if you do not use the dispersal paper, which is the matte finish plastic. As you can tell, you have much brighter areas here and over here. Now, it gives a cool look, but when you're driving down at night, between the 6 on your RPM gauge and between the 20 and 30 can be a little bit bright. So that's why we're going to go ahead and do that conversion.